Good morning. Welcome to this worship service for First Parish Church of Kingston, Massachusetts. I am the Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson. I am the minister of this church for a few more precious months, and I use she, her pronouns. We are going to enter into our time of worship, as always, with a chalice lighting. So I'm going to pass it over to Paula Fisher.
Thank you. We light our chalices today with these words from Deborah Bruell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace.
Thank you, Paula. We have a hymn to share, which Kathy Kay and Ruthie Blake recorded for us. So I'm going to put up the video. You are invited to listen, to hum, to sing, and it is in a round at times. So you are welcome to choose which part of the round you would like to share. My gratitude to our singers, to everyone who has found a way to continue sharing music in these times. Jen Shattuck has a time for all ages for us to share.
Good morning, all. It's so good to be with you on this bittersweet day. I want to talk this morning about commitment. It's said that making a commitment, dedicating or devoting ourselves to a particular purpose or project is like climbing a mountain. At the top of the mountain, when you've accomplished what you set out to do, is a beautiful view, but it may be challenging to get there. There are things that can help us with the climb, and we learn these things through experience. We know it's good to have a backpack full of supplies, focus and grit, a sense of adventure and a sense of joy. We know it's great to have the guidance and support of people who love us, who have maybe climbed this mountain before. We're all climbing our own mountains, doing what we can do to stay on course. Your mountain is different from mine, is different from your neighbors, is different from the person in the next Zoom square. And though we're all climbing together, the experience of climbing is different for each person. For some of us, the path up is clear and long. We can see where we're going, and the going is relatively easy. But for some of us, the path feels steep and hidden in fog and muddy and littered with snakes and rocks and difficult things. We carry with us not just our backpack of tools like grit and determination and joy, but questions too. Is this the right path for me? Is this the right mountain? We're all climbing mountains, And I want to leave you today with a few questions that we can carry with us as we go and spend some time with later if we choose to. So I invite you to join me in a spirit of meditation and ask yourself these questions. What strengths am I carrying on my journey up this mountain? What questions am I carrying? Who is guiding and supporting me now? What other mountains have I climbed that give me the experience I need to climb this one? Or to know that it's time for me to climb another? I invite you to keep these questions with you throughout the rest of the service and the day. See where they lead.
Thank you, Jen, for that meditation with those questions. Paula has a reading for us.
Walking Toward Morning by Reverend Victoria Safford. You know, we do it every day. Every morning we go out blinking into the glare of our freedom, into the wilderness of work and the world, making maps as we go, looking for signs that we're on the right path. And on some good days, we walk right out of our oppressions, these things that press us down from the outside, or as often, from the inside. We shake off the shackles of fear, prejudice, timidity, close-mindedness, selfishness, self-righteousness, and claim our freedom outright, terrifying as it is, our freedom to be human and humane. Every morning, every day, we leave our houses, not knowing if it will be for the last time, and we decide what we'll take with us, what we'll carry, how much integrity, how much truth-telling, how much compassion, in case somebody along the way may need some. How much arrogance, how much anger, how much humor, how much willingness to change and to be changed, to grow and to be grown, how much faith and hope, how much love and gratitude. You pack these things with your lunch and your medications, your date book and your papers. Every day we gather what we think we'll need, pick up what we love and all that we so far believe, put on our history, shoulder our experience and memory, take inventory of our blessings, and we start walking toward morning.
As we think about life as a journey, and we think about what we are carrying with us, I invite you to join in singing our next hymn, Meditation on Breathing, the beautiful reflection that wherever we are going, whatever we are doing, we can breathe in peace and breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. I'll breathe out love. This is not an easy sermon to preach today. I hope you will bear with me. Our Soul Matters theme for this month is the topic of commitment. And in this year of pandemic, many people have had to examine their commitments. And some of those commitments have been in conflict with each other. It is so clear right now that part of commitment is discernment. The ability to sit with a question, a tension, a decision for a long time until the right answer for you arises. This past summer, the Boston Globe ran an article titled, "The Pandemic Has People Re-Examining Their Lives. Some Don't Like What They're Seeing." In it, Globe staff writer Beth Title shared the stories of people who came to realize that they needed to make changes. There was Kathleen Reagan, an advertising sales manager who realized that to survive the stresses of the pandemic and family illness and financial insecurity, she would need to make changes. She started spending her mornings in contemplative silence, reading Seamus Heaney's poetry, journaling about gratitude, and truly listening to the breeze in her backyard. There was an anonymous woman who lives in Wakefield who said, "Before COVID, I was often sad and lonely and feeling left out of life. But during this time, she came to focus on what she has. She's grateful for a home, a yard, a dog, phone calls with her children. She says, I'm actually happy for the peacefulness of living simply and without the feeling of missing out on life that I had before the pandemic." Renee Ruggiero reflected on what she described as the time she's missed with her family in exchange for a corporate career and a good salary. "I can't say that looking back, it was worth it," she said. "How many times did I tell my kids I couldn't help them with this or that because I had to work or because I was exhausted?" She lost her job during the pandemic, and she finds that she prefers her new life. "I'm able to take care of my elderly father-in-law and enjoy it rather than think of it as a burden," she said. "COVID has blessed me with the ability to take stock of my life." This important process of discerning what our deepest commitments are and how to adjust our life when we need to is not an easy one. Especially outside of times of crisis, we face a lot of inertia, a lot of the feeling that maybe things should just stay the same. Maybe don't rock the boat, don't do anything rash, don't make any big changes. But in the first 6 months of this pandemic, therapists reported that more and more people were asking themselves hard questions, like, if I die now, have I lived the life I wanted to? Am I truly happy? When we get back out again, what should I be doing? Laura Carstensen, a professor of psychology at Stanford University, sums it up this way. She says, when people are reminded of the fragility of life, they see more clearly what's important. And maybe you had some of these moments of your own when something came into focus and you knew something had to change. This happened for me this year. when the pandemic meant that safe travel became impossible, when the CDC said you have to avoid all non-essential travel, at first I thought, well, yes, of course. We will cancel our flights for that family reunion in May. Staying put is the right thing to do. But as the months went on, I found myself thinking over and over, wow, I am really far away from my family. If something happened, I'm not sure I could get to them. And what eventually came into focus was a clear sense that a change needed to happen, that Jacob, Ann, and I would need to move closer to our relatives. And this happened for our director of family ministry too. For Jen, a clear sense emerged that what her family needed was for Jen to be a full-time at-home parent. That in that tension between serving a church and being present to her family, trying to do both meant it wasn't possible to do either one as fully and as well as she wanted to. So like the meditation we heard earlier, Jen and I were each called to look at the paths we were committed to. There are some core commitments to traveling the path. A call to serve the world in some way as Unitarian Universalist religious professionals. A call to be people who are present to our families. So now there is the knowledge that the path is coming to a fork in the road. And like Robert Frost's poem about roads diverging, no one can travel both when the fork happens. Frost wrote, "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth." But while you may recall that Frost's traveler picks the less traveled road, that's not always the right tool for discernment. Like the folks in the Boston Globe article, there are times when our navigation comes off of autopilot and we have to slow down and connect with the truest expression of our lives. Discernment, this practice of sitting with several possibilities and letting them unfold, is a spiritual practice in many religious traditions. And it's hard to do in this decision-based, fast-paced society that says, just pick something and get on with it. Discernment requires stillness and patience and waiting for the voice of wisdom to speak to us. It requires trying on different ideas, picking them up and then setting them down. It requires listening to your heart and being courageous. Brene Brown, a white American researcher who looks at vulnerability, has written this about the true meaning of courage. She says, courage comes from the root word cor, Latin for heart. Today, we think of courage as bravery or heroism, but originally it meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Heroics is important, and we certainly need heroes, she writes, but I think we've lost touch with the idea that speaking honestly and openly about who we are, about what we're feeling, and about our experiences, both good and bad, is the definition of courage. Heroics is often about putting our life on the line. Ordinary courage is about putting our vulnerability on the line. She tells the story of her daughter, Ellen, calling home to ask to be picked up from a slumber party at 10:30 p.m. When Brene picked up Ellen, Ellen said, "I'm sorry. I just wasn't brave enough. I got homesick. It was so hard. Everyone was asleep and I had to walk to Libby's mom's bedroom and wake her up. this being in the days before teenagers had their own cell phones. Renee answered her, "Ellen, I think asking for what you need is one of the bravest things you'll ever do. When I was your age, I suffered through a couple of really miserable sleepovers and slumber parties because I was too afraid to ask to go home. I'm proud of you. Even when it's hard, even when it goes against what the people around you expect, recognizing what is the right thing for you and doing it is part of what it means to live a wholehearted life." Now, many of our choices are bigger than whether to go home from a party, but they often carry that same feeling. I know what's right for me, and I know that saying it might be hard. I know I'll have to inconvenience other people. They'll be disappointed. I'll have to change some of my commitments to follow this one. I can't travel down both roads at once. It is not easy to tell you that it's time for me to move. It is hard and it is sad, and I will miss you. As I've told some of you, it's no fun to know that doing the right thing for me and my family means hurting people that I care about. And I have such clarity, having discerned, having sat with every option I could think of, having listened to the deepest, truest part of my heart. I know that this is the right thing for me to do. And we know these sorts of questions come to us in many phases of our lives, and they always ask us to listen deeply to what's right for us. So another story from Glennon Doyle, a white American writer and community organizer who had this experience parenting her daughter, Tish. Tish is the middle of 3 children. She came to her mother and she said that her older brother, Chase, wanted her to join the same club he had joined in middle school. "I don't want to," Tish said. "So don't," replied Glennon. "But I don't want to disappoint him," Tish answered. Then Glennon really leveled with her daughter. "Listen, every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, your duty is to disappoint that someone else. Your job throughout your entire life is to disappoint as many people as it takes to avoid disappointing yourself." "Even you?" asked Tish. "Especially me," answered her mother. It is one of the hardest lessons to learn in life, and a hugely important one. When you know what is true and right for you, you know what you need to do. It may disappoint other people, but doing what's right for you means you don't have to disappoint yourself. Now, in these years, I have been listening to you discerning too. Sometimes the collective you, the congregational you of First Parish. You have made tremendous moves in your commitment to being a beacon for justice, even when there have been worries that those moves might be unpopular. They might be hard. Together, we organized a vigil to mourn and protest the inhumane detention of children away from their parents at the southern US border back in the before times. And last June, we took the leap to put up a flag that declares that Black lives matter and affirmed that flag with a congregational vote in September. And in the following months, so many of you have deepened your personal commitments to anti-racism work. I also know that lately I've been hearing the collective you be very clear that you have a call to be what's often called a pastoral size congregation. That's the technical term for a church that's between about 75 and 150 members. In Eastern Massachusetts, with so many UU congregations pretty close to each other, Knowing the size that you're called to be and specializing in being that size is a great thing. I remember the minister and religious scholar Eugene Peterson, who was doing one of those On Being interviews with Krista Tippett. He said, people ask me, how do I pick a church? And his usual answer was, well, go to the closest church where you live and pick the smallest one. If in 6 months it's not working, you can go up to the next smallest. Krista Tippett said, okay, so what is it about small rather than big? Why are you counseling people to choose small churches? And Eugene Peterson said, because in a small church, you have to deal with people as they are. And you learn how to love people, even when it might be hard, even when it might feel like someone is unlovable. You learn to love each other. Now, in another part of the country, it wouldn't be so easy to be clear about congregational size, because choosing to embrace a pastoral size would mean that there are people who need Unitarian Universalism who wouldn't get to connect with it. But here, where there are so many congregations, offering Unitarian Universalism to as many people as possible means being true to your expression of our faith. Being a community that helps people feel connected and known and invited to grow spiritually in their relationships. Sometimes, as Eugene Peterson says, because a small community requires us to really meet each other as we are, it is the best place to practice loving each other. We know our paths change. We know that the ways we travel on our paths change. We know there are deep truths of our lives which endure. And it is up to each of us to listen to the still small voice, to feel for the movements of life, and then to follow the clarity we find. As we enter into this different phase of our time together, these months in which we commit to celebrate and honor what we have done together, and to discern and embrace our futures as they diverge, let us pause and mark this threshold. It's my privilege to have met you exactly as you are, to have gotten to know you, to have grown and learned with you. You will forever be the first church that called me as a settled minister. And I will forever be wishing for you that your lives will be as a song, resounding with the dark to sing awake the light. So you may softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. May it be so. We will move into a time of a little more music to hold us with all that we may be feeling. An opportunity, as always, to give to support the work of this congregation, or simply to pause and to share this hymn, which is about listening to our souls, letting them guide us and comfort us. Recorded again by Kathy Kay and Ruthie Blake.
Comfort me,
Paula Fisher has our chalice extinguishing words for this morning. You're still muted, Paula. Possibly we can't get, oh, there we go.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. We extinguish our chalices, symbolizing the ending of this time of worship. We carry in our hearts the light of our commitments which endure.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We are going to stop our recording so that we can have a chance to share joys and sorrows with each other.